Bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this public and regular meeting of the Municipal Council on this beautiful 14th day of February. We all wanted you to be here for Valentine's night. I'm convinced you'd rather be elsewhere. This being said, for our word of opening, dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That being said, confirmation of quorum and confirmation of conflict of interest, if there's any. Yes, 7.3 for me. Shirating 7.3 says. Okay,
C'est noté.
it is noted.
C'est ça. On va vous envoyer à l'extérieur du
We'll
Zoom
send you outside
lors de cette discussion.
during that discussion.
On vous demandera aussi de remplir
We'll ask you also
la place nécessaire.
to fill the necessary documents.
Adoption de l'ordre du jour.
Adoption of
Adoption de
agenda,
l'ordre
a
du jour est
motion to
proposé par
adopt,
M.
same,
Thibodeau
moved
et
by
proposé à
Councillor
l'unanimité
Thibodeau,
par le
seconded by
groupe
Councillor
socialiste.
Boudreau on the question.
Aucune question? Ceux qui
No
sont
question. All those in
contre l'avis
favor say aye.
Oui.
Oui,
de l'avis contraire.
Contrary reminded nay.
Alors, l'ordre du jour est accepté.
So the
Nous avons pour numéro
carried.
7,
It brings us to item
présentation
7,
des requêtes et pétitions.
presentation inquiries and petition.
7.1.
7.1.
Bonsoir, M. Jolette.
Good evening, Mr. Gillette. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council.
S'il y en a qui ont des demandes de renseignements,
So, will anyone have
c'est
any
suite à des demandes
inquiries for the
d'investigation.
regional RCM, Kodiak RCMP?
Ils sont en train d'y penser. Alors,
They're thinking about
pendant
it.
qu'ils pensent,
While they think,
vous aurez quelques mots sans doute.
you have a few words, I assume. Yes, if you need some time to think about it. Love is in the air, and I just wanted to tell you happy Valentine's, and I can't wait until we meet in person and the changes that will be brought on the 18th. We can start to have a almost normal life. I want to give you a report to the council about the COVID and the Kodiak employees. Like any department or organization, we were not spare. We work hard to make sure that we have always been able to meet the calls and to be present during major events or minor in our patrol. Until now, things have been going quite well. Nothing major to mention. We help our colleagues everywhere. You probably heard in the news and the things that were announced, things that change every minute. We have to adapt also, but I can make sure, I can tell you that the emphasis is to assure a service to the community. It's hard to answer all the needs, but we want to continue the work that is important. On that, since January, we have not had se- ser- there was a serious accident. We were able to rescue five a person, and the person responsible was arrested Friday. So this is important for us for the future, and we want to make sure that victims are well treated and that the guilty persons be brought before the justice. And we will keep on working on the files, whether they be major or minor in importance. That's all I have. important eyes. I want to make sure for everyone to drive cautiously during winter. Winter is far from being done, like the pandemic and the nice sun is coming at the horizon. That's all I have to say, members of council. Thank you. You're uh, a philosopher during that time. One hand raised. This is a good book question. Yes, thank you. My question has to do with school transportation, congestions that happens close to Majumata with the COVID recently, the problems with all of the school transport we receive as parents. As parents, we have the responsibility of making sure the school transportation of our children they may not arrive at a given time, but at Majumata, a restaurant across on the other side of Majumata, there's a place to pick up, and the traffic is not working as usual. So when the school district, make an announcement, do they cooperate with the RCMP? Do they inform the RCMP? Are you being told when heavy traffic like that happens? If not, what could we do to avoid that? Several parents have talked to me about it. And as a family, we try to go and get our children. It becomes somewhat dangerous. So when there's a change in the agenda, and it happens often, well, I would say I can't confirm if we've had that contact you're talking about, but the Highway Safety Committee for the Kodiak Transit, we can send the information directly, but the school the school can inform us. As I said, if we don't hear about it, it's hard to react or be proactive. So these are informations that are important to know. And the number 417-8200 can be used, but our officers are working for the community policing. They also can be made aware of this. I will communicate with our supervisor in that sector to know if something was shared with them. And they have all contacts and for the school district and the schools as a whole, and they'll tell me about it. Thank you.
Je ne vois pas d'autres questions.
I don't see any further
Alors,
questions.
merci pour
Once again,
votre
thank
présence
you
et
for
pour
your
votre
presence
rapport
and for
et
your report,
à la prochaine.
and see you next time. Thank you,
Bonsoir.
one and all. Good night.
Maintenant, au 7.2,
Now,
participation
7.2
publique
public
sur
presentation,
modification du plan d'aménagement
amendments,
municipal
municipal development
sur la limite de
plan
zonage sur le
on a
terrain
zoning bylaw
de Gillespie.
on Gillespie Street.
Monsieur Alexandre Girard, bonsoir.
Monsieur Alexandre Gerard, good evening. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council.
Oui,
Can you hear me? Yes, fine. I will start my presentation.
Parfait. Donc,
So,
on est présentement
we are presently in a public presentation
l'arrêté Z9
for 79-8.
comme toute autre présentation publique,
As
il va y avoir une
any other
procédure
presentation, there will be a
on
specific
va
procedure to follow.
regarder
So,
vraiment
we
la
will
proposition telle quelle
look at
et
the
évidemment aussi
proposal
rappeler la
as
référence
such
à c'est quoi effectivement
and see
nouvel arrêté
really what is the new bylaw
Z9.
79 18
Donc, l'échéance
8.
du
The
processus
deadline for the
pour procéder aux
process, like
modifications
any other
à des
amendment,
zonages, on est
have a
très
process
aussi
to change.
par
There's
rapport à la loi sur les
physical change we
zonages.
have to
À la
follow.
dernière réunion,
So at the last
ça
meeting,
a été entamé
the
par la
council
proposition
by a resolution undertaken the process by fixing the the public hearing, and also the recommendation of the APAC. So as you can see today, this meeting, we're in public hearing. On March 14th, there will be a public hearing. On March 16th, the recommendation from the public uh, advisory committee, and on March 28th would be the opportunity for the council to look at the question either by adopting or by proceeding the reading of the bylaw as is. To put you in context, the application of amendment to the localization of the proposed project is a property that goes along Gillespie Street. It's where the star is. You can see we're surrounded by the Pigodiac River, the Fox Creek Brook, and also there's a subdivision of single family dwelling. So you see the change on the map for the map. There's portion of the property that bear the number 704 and the 392. The proposal would be to divide the property into to amend the the soil that is presently conservation ecologic to have a family single family dwelling. You see in front of you the proposed subdivision relatively concerning where you see lot 22-4A. It would be to accommodate an existing family dwelling, and 22-5 would be to accommodate a new family dwelling, single family dwelling. So it's relatively simple in itself. You see in front of you the effect of the existing soil. What you see in green is where we would need a legal change to accommodate the proposal. As you can see, in a great majority of the sector is found with the residential area, and in the back here, it's the ecological effect that is mentioned in my report. There doesn't seem to be a specific history as to the ecological designation for the property per se. There doesn't seem to be presence of anything. It was confirmed by the Department of the Environment. There is a zone for the marsh and for the Picodiac River that is found on the part where you see my cursor, but effectively the localization within the inside the red, there's no ecological interest per se. From the information that we have, there's no ecological cycle registered with the province. So it seems to be a request that seems simple. It's a private property again. That's the reason why the request is in front of you to accommodate a single family dwelling. You see, it's a map that is managed by the Department of the Environment of the province. So when you inventorize the marsh and there's no presence of anything. So this concludes the public presentation. Any concerned persons can send their comments, objections to the office of the clerk at the following email address, and to give the information that is as for if there's any question, I'm available to answer them. Thank you. Two members of council, Monsieur Thibodeau, followed by Mrs. Boudreau. Monsieur Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. Monsieur Girard, you mentioned that if they're not humid property, is it found in a flooded zone? Well, effectively, the property would be at a higher level. We have standard to follow that are within the zoning bylaw. Even if it were, even if it was in a flooding area, it should be raised at 10.5 of elevation. This is not the case. So it's outside the flooding zone. That's the only question I had. I thank you. Mrs. Boudreau put her head down. It was probably the same question. It was the same question, yes. So if there's no further question, the process will continue and we will wait for the presentation of the PSC. Right. The next step will be the public hearing. Public hearings. Yes, that's the recommendation. Thank you. There's no further question. Thank you. So let's go to the next item.
Yeah.
7.3 public hearing, amendment municipal development plan. I forgot the other part of it. Zoning, the Amica property. That's why I'm still here, your worship. Oh yes.
Technologie d'envoyer Monsieur
We'll
Lantaigne dans le
ask the technical to send Monsieur Lantaigne in the private room. We'll ask the technician to please send Monsieur Lantaigne away. Monsieur Lantaigne has left. We can continue.
Partager mon écran de nouveau.
I'll share my screen again.
Donc,
So
présentement,
we're presently in public hearing
projet d'arrêté que vous voyez devant
for the bylaws that you see in front of you. We will deal once again with the changes that are proposed
carte d'affectation du sol au
to the
et
affectation of the soil and the zoning bylaw.
donc,
In relation with the zoning bylaw, we'll deal with both documents and we have combined
deux demandes
the two application of amendment within the public hearing for the simple reason that the two application on two properties that are one besides the other, just to make things easier, it will be done within the public hearing.
Donc, vous avez devant vous
So you have in front of you once again the plan of the presentation.
on va regarder encore
We'll see once again the deadline for the process and the proposed
donc, pour revenir un petit peu,
amendment. So to go
on a
back,
eu une
we
résolution,
by resolution we fixed a
résolution
date of public presentation that was held on January
qui fixait
the
la
24th.
résolution
We fixed also the recommendation to the request of the
en
Planning Advisory Committee for February 16th, presently a public hearing, and the file will go back before council for a decision making on January 28th.
présentation des projets proposés
So the proposed project
et l'étoile.
are found where you see the star
Devant
on
nous,
Champlain Street in front of the airport.
Lorette,
We have Lorette, Charlottesville Road here.
Vous avez
So
devant
you
vous
have in front of you the two maps
proposé à la
that are proposed changes to the soil fixation map. On the left, it's for deposit and storage, and on the right is for the proposed changes to accommodate the multi-family dwelling. That's for the and the next is the proposed changes to the map, and on the left is for the project of the storage. On the right, it's the multi-family dwelling on the right.
Juste pour vous remettre en
So
contexte,
just to put you in context again,
première demande,
the first application
on
where
voit le carré
we see the square in yellow,
accommodé
that would be to accommodate a storage. So the storage would be essentially an extension to the existing building that is presently being used as an office, and second request or second application for the sector that is indicated in red would be to accommodate a project of multifamily dwelling project. And so just to put you in context, number one represents a service station that is located besides the property. Number two is a single family dwelling. So the same thing on the side of Lorette, there's multi-family dwelling that along the Lorette, and here is a nursing home. Number three and four is the airport road, and five is Notre Dame de Lorette School or the Lakeburn Church. We will talk about it in more details later on in the presentation. So here, just to look at what is the zoning in the surrounding sector, there seems to be a presence of zoning Champlain East located on Champlain Road, zoning 2 and institutional zone here. So start with the first application with the title demand. The application would be to accommodate an extension to the existing building to have a storage. The storage would go with the business that is already on location, namely an office, and there would be the development of a landscaping and all use will be within a building. There won't be any storage outside the building. Everything will be inside the building. There won't be any heavy equipment that will be located outside the building. So you have it in front of you, the proposed building. So the it will be 150 square meters or 600 square meters, and as I said, the storage will be added to the existing building in the back. For the second application, the property indicated in red is a multifamily dwelling, and the church is located here at the present time. So the proposal would be to destroy the church uh, to accommodate the proposed project. So the design you have in front of you, what the applicant is proposing to develop is if the application is requested a four-story with 50 lodging, 96 parking space with an entrance on Champlain Street. As we mentioned at the last presentation, the staff raised an issue that is worth being looked at more carefully, and the promoter decided to undertake a specific study, a sound study to really understand what are the potential nuisance that would come from the airport located on the site, and if there's any mitigating measures that could be brought if the application is accepted. So this report would be according to the information that I receive. I'm not saying it will be delivered before the council make the decision on the rezoning application, but with the recommendation of mitigating, but everything will be presented again to the council before a decision is made. So here you have in front of you, as I mentioned, it's called non-exposure cone. It comes from the master plan of the airport, and as it was mentioned at the last presentation, Transport Canada have some recommendation, not necessarily to uh, develop residential use inside some noise cone. Here, this is the intention of seeing where the project will be located outside the temper zone, and if it is, then we have need mitigation to make sure that there is no long-term nuisance to the multifamily dwelling. So this is another. perspective, you see the line is quite close to the multi-family dwelling that is proposed. As it was mentioned, the study that will be done by the promoters will be able to answer some of our questions. And these are things that will be necessary for the council. So here again, as I mentioned, the study is undertaken. The results will be shared with the staff and also with the council. And it will be a recommendation to incorporate the mitigating measures. On the other aspect that was important to consider is the church. So we've mentioned we have a heritage policy in Dieppe. So we had the opportunity with my colleague Pauline Cormier, uh, Bernard Leblanc, and with the help of the promoter Denis, to visit the church last week to see if there's any items that are were being preserved. So at this time, there's very little items that is worth being preserved. Even the building has any heritage aspect that is not worth. It may be worth preserving. There might be some items inside the building that could be preserved, such as the bell on the steeple, and we will undertake discussions with the promoter if there's items that are worth being preserved. The other item is the question that before the building is destroyed, we would like to invite the people of the community to come and visit the church one last time. So the date that would be planned would be on April 27th, so that more information will be shared with the citizens in days to come to give them more information on the opportunity to come and visit the site. And the objective would be to develop a plaque on the property to continue the development of a heritage center. This completes the public hearing. We received one comment from a citizen that has to be shared with the council. It's a procedure of a public hearing. Comments received in writing must be shared with the council during the public hearing.
Monsieur le maire,
That's
merci
true. Members of
d'envoyer
council, I will share the comments we received
Dawson.
from Mr. Sean
Quelques
Dobson. I
commentaires
want to
sur
bring a few
la
comments as
modification
to the project of the multifamily dwelling on Champlain
la dernière réunion de
proposed during the last meeting of Municipal
possibilité
Council.
d'avoir des accès
Will there be
piétonniers à ce secteur
access pedestrian other than on Champlain Street?
intéressant qui pourrait
There's a
avoir
few
depuis le site
neighboring street that could have some manual giving access to Lakeland Park and Lorette Street giving access to commercial space on the land for this is adjacent to Emmanuel Street. I believe we have to make efforts to reduce the automobile dependency, even if it's very isolated by including pedestrian access. It would reduce by half the distance to follow on foot and to encourage the active transportation. Mr. Shane Dobson is.
Merci.
Thank you.
Je vois qu'il y a une
Now I
question
see
de
there's a
Marielle.
question from Councillor Woodrow. Madame Woodrow,
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
your
Ma
worship,
question, c'était
my question is
surtout comme un commentaire. Je regardais l'image du bâtiment
I look at
et
the
des
picture of the
spécifications qui
building
sont
and the
marquées là.
description. We talk about 52
96 espaces stationnels.
houses, but 96 parking
En
space.
2022,
In
on dit que la
2022, we
dépendance
continue
affectée
the
entre
dependency on the
32
car
espaces
by
stationnels
leaving so
stationnels et le
many parking space.
municipal
Could we
voulait réduire
do
le
something
nombre
to
de stationnements.
reduce the number of parking spaces? It's a very good question, but do you see my presentation? So
À l'heure actuelle, l'arrêté
at
zonage
the present
prévoit
time,
un
zoning
minimum
bylaw
d'espace
requires a minimum parking space, so the ratio
un espace
is
et
one space,
1,25 espaces par
1.25
unité.
spaces per
Donc,
unit.
on n'a pas de maximum.
So we don't have any
C'est
maximum.
certainement quelque
So
chose
it's simply something
imposé comme
that could
condition
be
sur le
imposed as a condition if we wanted to limit
du stationnement sur
the parking
ça peut
on
être
the
une
property.
condition que
It could certainly be a condition if you wish to reduce
l'empreinte
the
sur le site
imprint on the site
ratio
to
minimum
a minimum ratio as required by the zoning bylaw. It's certainly something you could consider. And another item that might be worth being considered is the place of the site. It's a site that
en termes de
offers services. Yes, there will be access to public transport, but it's the kind of uh, it's not necessarily a bus stop that would be close to the building.
pour répondre à votre question,
But to answer your question, it's something that you can certainly do.
quelque chose qu'on a quand même
It's not
l'habitude de
something
faire
that we have a habit of doing to impose the maximum, but it's certainly something that is in your power to impose if you so wish.
Ça,
Thank
c'est
you.
quelque chose qu'on pourrait
What is
considérer
something we could consider maybe
éventuellement.
eventually?
On
And
peut penser aussi que la
we
ville
can also
va
think that the
devoir
city
grandir
is continuing to
et si
develop and to
toutefois
grow.
le
Even if
centre-ville
right now it's not
augmenterait de
downtown, maybe eventually
d'accès
there will be much more
de
access
transport en commun, c'est
to
bon à
public
savoir aussi.
transport at,
Merci.
at that area. Thank you.
Merci, c'est certainement une
Thank you. It's
considération
certainly a
que CDC
consideration
devrait
that
avoir.
the PSC
Bien,
should be informed of. Mrs. Godbout?
J'avais dans la même ligne d'idée.
Well, I
La
was
question,
same line of thought.
justement,
If you
si
could
c'est
put the
mieux pour
question to the pack to
l'environnement,
have their comment and their opinion,
leurs impressions là-dessus.
their impression of that. I
C'est
find that
intéressant
would be
aussi de
interesting,
choisir
Monsieur
le
Gerard.
rationnel de pouvoir avoir le 1,25. Dans le
The
temps,
rationale
quand
why
on
to
avait
have
préparé,
one and a
il y avait
quarter.
un quart de stationnement,
We
1,25 stationnement.
we had
C'était quoi la
planned
raison?
1.25. What was the reasoning?
Pourquoi de ce montant-là?
What was the reason to have that amount,
c'est
1.25?
difficile
It's difficult to answer that question, Mrs. Godbout, because
avec les arrêtés de zonage, c'est souvent
by a
avec
zoning bylaw, what happens
des
when we
décisions,
come
c'est souvent dû
with data like this,
d'une
it's
jurisdiction parce que c'était
taken
passé
from another jurisdiction because it's a
ailleurs
better practice that was adopted elsewhere. It was used by someone else.
derrière ça,
But the reasoning behind this, while it's quite
général,
probable that the people have more than one car,
les visiteurs.
is to accommodate visitors, and quite often
C'est un minimum.
it's a minimum,
Parlant
but quite often by talking with the developers, that minimum is quite often increased.
d'avoir deux
And we talk about having two spaces parking per unit. So it's not seldom to see this at 0.75, and it's not very rare to see this. At the end of the day, well, we have a minimal amount, but it's a standard that is.
J'ai pas
Uh,
vraiment une réponse particulière. Il y a
I don't have a real answer. It's not a specific at 1.25. It comes with the question of request.
Merci
I'll
donc.
give it.
C'est ça que
Thank you. I appreciate
Conseiller
that.
Godbout
I found that Councilor Boudreau was raising a good point.
nous a décrit peut-être l'intention
Well,
ou la direction dans laquelle on veut que les choses aillent.
maybe
C'est
it's what we would intend for the future. It's something.
merci pour ça.
Councilor Boudreau, thank you for what you did. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you.
Ça nous amène à l'huitième. S'il n'y a
Then,
pas
but
d'autres
if there's no
comments,
more comments, I don't see any.
on va passer
So
au
we'll go
procès.
to
Aller récupérer M. Lontagne. Ouais. Il doit s'ennuyer tout seul.
Can we get him?
Il est de retour.
Oh, he's back.
Il s'en vient.
He's coming. He's there.
Bon, de retour. C'est bien.
You're back, eh?
Ça nous
Very
amène
good.
à l'huitième et
That brings
dernière
us
question.
item number
Je ne sais
8.
pas si on a reçu des questions de
Questions from the
l'extérieur.
public. Did we get any questions from outside? No.
Item 9 pour
So number 9,
le procès
adoption
verbal de la réunion
of
du
the
4
minutes of the
janvier
regular meeting held on January 24th. Would somebody move?
par Monsieur
Moved by Monsieur Brideau, seconded by Mrs.
Sur la
Turgeon-Roy.
question.
On the question.
Aucune question sur ce
No
point.
question. All those in favor
Du procès verbal de la
of
réunion du
adoption of the
4
minutes
janvier.
of the meeting of January 24th, say aye.
L'avis contraire par
Contrary minded, say nay.
le procès verbal de la réunion
So the minutes of the meeting of January 24th is adopted as presented.
Maintenant, du
Now,
côté des mémorandums et
memorandum
nominations, l'item
and
10,
nomination number 10,
niveau de l'administration,
administration,
Mélenchon
Mr.
10.1,
Melanson,
extension de contrat.
10.1.1, extension of contract.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Bonsoir tout le monde.
Your worship, good
Nous
evening,
avons un
everyone.
contrat avec
First, a file
Executive
extension
Advisory
executive
Incorporated.
advisory
On a donné un
incorporated.
contrat à l'automne
So we gave a contract for 4 months to this building for the management of human resources to the municipality.
Le concours
According to the
veut
director,
combler le
the
poste.
competition is following its course to fill the position that
Alors
we
ici, c'est
should
pour
come
prolonger
to it shortly. And
le
this is to
contrat
extend
actuellement
from January to the end of March or March 28th, the contract that
couvrant
is
les besoins
presently
de certains
in
éléments du
existence to go to $75,000 for that
L'ajout à ce
period.
contrat ici, c'est que
The addition to this contract is there's a second resource that is available
de ressources
to
humaines
manage the human resources files. We think it's an added value
nous avons
with the resources that we don't have internally
Alors,
at
ça
the
permet de
present time.
prioriser
This
les
allow
dossiers
us to direct the
avec la
files to the
spécialité de
proper
cette personne.
person with the specialty that that
Alors,
person
pour
will have.
l'appui du
So
conseil de
it's to have the support of the council to extend this contract
en matière de services
to
de ressources humaines,
make sure of human resources
alors je lis
going up to $75,000 up to March 31st.
pour la lecture de la
To
résolution en
read
premier lieu.
the resolution first of all.
Donc, lire la résolution.
Would somebody move? I'll do it.
OK. Bon,
Fine.
Madame Le Boutier.
Mrs. Boutier,
C'est la première main que j'ai vue.
the first hand that I saw.
Que le conseil autorise la
That council authorized the extension of the contract with Galley Executive Advisory Inc. until March the 31st, 2022 for the interim management of the Human Resources Department. Its estimated cost of $75,000. Please, Jesse, and that expenses be taken for expenditure number account 1-2-20-2590, general operating budget administration. I so move. Moved by Councillor Leboudier, seconded by
Conseiller Godette.
Councillor
Sur la
Godet.
question.
On the question.
Aucune question. Ceux qui sont
No
en
question. All those in favor.
oui. Oh,
See it.
excusez-moi.
Oh,
Question,
sorry.
Madame
Question. Mrs. Boudreau. Sorry.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
D'abord, je pense qu'on a eu un bon
First,
service
I
avec
think we've
Madame
had
Galley.
good service with Mrs. Galley.
L'avoir rencontrée, elle était vraiment
For
bonne.
having met her, she
Ma
was
question est
good. My
surtout
question is
comment on a procédé
mostly on
pendant
what
l'appel d'offres
how
d'avoir
did
ce
we
service-là.
proceeded
Puis,
for
concernant le
the
contrat,
tender to
là,
get this.
on a
Well, we
mi-février,
approve. We're in mid-February. We're approving something for January
mi-février,
while
j'espère
we're in mid February. I'm trying to understand how
Alors,
this happens.
connaît bien, c'est un service
As you understand,
privé
it's
pour
a
la gestion des ressources
special
humaines et
service, the whole management of human
concernant
resources and
la bonne pratique au niveau de
the
la
laws
gestion
on
en
good
matière de
practice on
ressources
the
humaines.
governance of
On a
human
fait la
resources.
sélection
So
de la
when we
firme
made the selection of the
avec
firm,
exercice à l'automne en
when we
septembre.
did the exercise in September last fall, we made sure
Donc,
that that company
offrir les services qu'on
could
recherche.
offer the service we
Aussi, on
were looking for. And we were
cherchait une entreprise qui avait
also
aussi
looking for a business that had
gestion
the
des
knowledge
ressources
of the
humaines.
organization and internal
C'est pour ça qu'on
governance,
a fait
a
un accord,
culture.
on vous a
That's
présenté
why
un
we made
accord
an agreement that we presented in
lorsque
the
vous êtes
fall
arrivé à la fin de l'année.
when we arrive at the end of the year. And on January the
Et nous avons
22nd,
prolongé aussi
the
le contrat
elements
qui a été mis en place
change
au niveau du
while
service
there were
qui a été
other departures within the human resource that brought a final recommendation to a later date that is here to, no, otherwise it would have been in the middle of January. With the absence of resources, we had, we needed to have a different approach with the building to make a recommendation tonight.
Pour moi, je pense que c'est un peu à l'envers quand même
I think it's
d'accepter un contrat. Ça nous donne
awkward to
vraiment
accept a
peu
contract. It does not give us any room
peut-être nous
to say
satisfait
that
pas.
price does not
C'est-à-dire
satisfy us. Is that a standard? $262 an hour
services.
for her services. It's a standard in the field of human resources. Thank you.
Merci. Autre question.
Other question.
Oui,
Monsieur Thibodeau?
Monsieur Thibodeau,
merci, Monsieur le maire.
your worship.
Puis, moi aussi, je trouve que c'est
Similarly, I find it's very expensive. $75,000 for 3 months. However, I wonder
directrice devrait rentrer en service.
when will the new director start working? It's in negotiation at the present time, Councillor Thibodeau. Guidelines should be brought to council, and then we'll contact the person that is recommended to finalize the agreement. Once that is done, we'll share the good news.
OK.
Fine,
Mais j'espère que
but I
ça
hope
viendra plus tôt que plus tard. Puis que
that she will
on va
come
réduire ce montant-là.
sooner rather than later, and we'll be able to reduce the amount. That's the objective. Thank you.
Autre question.
Other question,
Madame Turgeon-Roy.
Mrs. Turgeon-Roy.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you
Juste
very
spécifier,
much.
Monsieur
Just to
Mélenchon,
specify, Monsieur Melançon,
75 000,
so it's
ça va
75,000
faire le remplacement ou la
will
poursuite du
replace,
remplacement de la direction, mais
will
ça va aussi
follow,
chercher une autre ressource.
will
C'est ça
also
que j'ai bien compris.
get another resource. The present contract, we have a person, Mrs. Galley, and we have a second employee who accompanies the contract. It's included, and this offer will also make the transition when we have a new person should be responsible for family resources. For
La précision.
thank you for the explanation. Other question, Monsieur Brideau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Your worship,
Monsieur Mélenchon,
Monsieur Melançon,
je comprends très bien les contraintes que vous avez eues
I
à
understand
faire la
restraint
sélection, mais
you've had to
dans le
go
futur,
through to make the selection,
est-ce
but
qu'il n'y
in
a
the
pas moyen
future,
que vous pourriez
wouldn't there
obtenir un
be
conseil, même
a
si ce n'est
way
pas passé
that the
encore
council, even if it's not
lorsque ça se
publicly
passe,
adopted
demande
yet,
d'approuver
we
un
are
salaire
asking to
pour un
approve
mois,
a
environ
salary
un mois. Oui, on est rendu
for a month?
à
Well,
mi-février.
we're mid
Est-ce qu'on pourrait
February.
obtenir un salaire
We want to approve January to
dans
March.
les années pour une autre, par exemple, pour une autre situation, est-ce que vous ne pourriez pas aviser
Or
le conseil
another time, couldn't you inform the council
nous aviser de la
and
situation?
maybe give us a note to inform
On est
us?
senti obligé maintenant aujourd'hui, là,
Well, it's not we
on lui donne un
feel
salaire,
that we have to, but today,
on va lui donner tout ce
well,
salaire-là
we're
qui
going to
est
give
rémunéré.
her that salary that is quite heavy. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Message reçu. C'est bien.
Well received. Thank you.
D'autres?
Nobody else?
Ceux qui sont en faveur de la résolution?
Those in favor of resolution say aye.
Oui. Contraire, par
Contrary minded say nay.
Alors, la résolution est adoptée.
Resolution is carried as presented.
Ça nous amène au
That
premier
brings
point
us to next item 10.2,
nomination du directeur
appointment
pour
of the
l'organisation municipale
director for the
des
Municipal Emergency Measures Organization. Monsieur Nelson, as the members of council know, we appointed Mark Cormier as chief of the fire department a few weeks ago. We're in the obligation of appointing the coordinator for the municipal emergency measures organization. We recommend Mark Cormier for the reading of this,
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
your worship,
En vertu de la loi sur les mesures
pursuant to the Emergency Measures Act of the council, appoint Mark Cormier as director of the municipal emergency organization, and that the said appointment remains in In fact, as long as the person engaged with the municipality or until the appointment is limited or revoked by council as so moved by Councilor Thibodeau, seconded by Councilor Godet. On the question.
Aucune question, Madame
No question, Ms. Godbout. Small question on the resolution. We say nomination remains in effect until the person remain in service of municipality. Will it not be in the existing position? The nomination should have to do with the existing. Just wanted to clarify the intention behind this. Is the intention with the existing? Maybe we should explain because the way it's written means you can change position and he would remain. So if that's the intention, maybe we could just explain it that it has to do with the position. We'll make sure to make note that I don't have any objection.
Autre question?
Any other questions?
Aucune autre question? Ceux qui sont en faveur de la résolution?
All those in favor, say aye.
Oui.
L'avis contraire?
Contrary minded, nay.
La résolution est adoptée telle que présentée.
Carried as presented.
Service d'ingénierie 10.3.
Engineering at 10.3. Monsieur Melançon, 10.3.1. We presented the program for asphalt for 2022 as we wanted to add the section of Pascal between Champlain and Delia streets. So it's to allow to integrate it with the preservation of asphalt for 2022. For those who travel there, you know the condition of the surface in that area. I think it's vigilant and to integrate it to the activities for asphalt replacement for the reading of the resolution. I can do it. Monsieur Godet. That council authorized the personnel of the engineering department to include mill and pave work for Pascal Avenue between Champlain Street and Delia in the 2022 asphalt preservation program. I so moved by Councilor Godet, seconded by Councilor Boudreau. Other question?
Aucune question?
No question. All those in favor, say aye.
L'avis contraire
And
provenant.
reminded nay.
La résolution est adoptée telle que
Carried as presented.
10.3.2.
10.3.2 Revision Standard Municipal Specification. Yes, Your Worship. From time to time, every 4 to 6 years, we make a revision of our plans. You'll receive a package that is quite heavy, quite generous, as we can say. If you want to have a summary of the elements that were revised, especially the laws that were revised. We standardized some elements that had to meet our standard. But if you want to have more explanation, Mr. Spencer can certainly summarize if need be.
Peut-être pas résumé,
Well,
mais
not, maybe not summarize, but
certainement
we can certainly
profiter de ces services.
take advantage of her service once we've read the resolution. If there's any question on specific elements for the reading of the resolution, Monsieur Lantin, please. Thank you, Worship, that Council approved the proposed revision of the City of Dieppe Standard Municipal subcontracts dated February 2022. I so moved by Councilor Lantin, seconded by Councilor Boudreau.
Sur la question.
On the question.
Il y avait des questions?
Any question?
Oui.
Yes,
Monsieur Thibodeau.
Monsieur Thibodeau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Worship.
Pas une question, c'est un-
It's not really a question, but
que je ne
it's
trouve
a
pas
sentence that I don't understand what they mean.
Page 96, la
It's on
première
page
phrase,
96, the first sentence on top of the page.
le début de la phrase a été
The beginning
supprimé
of the sentence was
à page
eliminated
95.
at the end of page 95. It
Page
continues.
97. So that
Shall
stems are vertical and
have vertical.
tout seul, là, pour moi, ça n'a pas de sens du tout.
That for me doesn't make sense at all.
On a-tu sauté une ligne peut-être, madame?
Did we jump one sentence? Mrs. Spencer,
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Bonjour.
your worship, good evening.
Je pense que ça se lit quand même tout seul. Valve shall be set so that the valve
Thou
stems
shalt
are vertical and plumb.
vertical and plumb.
Ouais, je
Non,
pense que ça
non,
faisait pas de
Yes.
sens avant.
No, it didn't make sense.
Ça fait quand même du sens.
But in itself, now it makes sense.
il doit y avoir une majuscule.
Well, then there should be a capital letter. Yes, you're right. Thank you.
C'est que je pensais qu'il manquait quelque chose avant.
I thought there was something missing.
Ouais. Ouais, il semblerait manquer quelques items entre les deux, là.
There seems to be something missing between the two.
On va faire la vérification avant de
Well,
faire
we'll,
la
we'll
vérification.
check it out before we make the final approval.
D'accord, merci bien.
Thank you.
Merci.
C'était mon seul commentaire pour
That was my only comments.
Madame Godbout.
Ms. Godbout,
Merci, j'ai quelques questions
I have a
spécifiques
few
dans le
questions
et deux questions
in the
générales.
documents, and I have two general questions on the amendments. Generally speaking, if I look at my first question, it would be 10.4.17, page 64 of 226 of the council package. I don't know if it helps you. Page 64, there's 4.1.17. It says it has to be completed the program of the recognition of NBCSA. We add a measure. I understand the intention to add a measure. I don't know the certificate of acknowledgement in question. I'm not familiar with the process of certification process. The short delay in which it will be implemented. Will some people not be aware to get an acknowledgement? I'd like to know what the impact will be if we implement this. If they're not in power, they're excluded for 222 already, and that's the impact. And because of COVID and everything else, maybe we cannot satisfy that acknowledgement. Mr. Spencer, thank you for the question. So all the business people who deal with us on a regular basis are already certified. What happens sometimes, there's new ones that have yet to be certified. We want to make sure that they will have certification before they undertake the work. That's why we're asking that they have a certification before they can obtain a contract. So when they tender on that call for tender, we want to make sure that they're certified. All the business are already all satisfied. So it was a practice before, and now we standardize it. Well, before we would accept if it was on the way, but we want to make sure that he is certified before he gets. Do we have suppliers that we used in the past that could not receive it because of COVID? No, not to my knowledge. Well, normally when we change the standard, there's a transition period that is much greater than what we have. I find that the period quite short considering the impact, but if you say the impact is minimal, I would object to this. I find it short. We have not yet got to a tender call. So if they're approved tonight, there will be a few months before we go to a tender call. Yes, but just wonder if because of COVID, if the period is enough. Made my point. I'll let you digest that. It's not a reason not to be in favor, but I think page 65.1.5.5, we say it's not a common practice to expose the water conduct, so we can remove that sentence. I'm not sure I have the context, but are we increasing the obligation or reducing? We say, is it desirable that we have that? I'm trying to understand what is the proposed change here. No, we make the revision. We judged that it was not necessary. So we decided that no, redundant. Okay, the document was long. These were specific. I have general questions if I still have time. Yes, two general questions. Generally speaking, the changes, what can it represent as far as the increase of building in the what is being proposed? It changes standard, it can change things. Can it make such that we would increase the plan costs that we would have in relation to this? Thank you for the question. It's always difficult to judge, but it's us that becomes owner of that property. So we want to make sure that we have the quality that we pay for. But nevertheless, I think that the changes are quite minimal and it's for a cleaning because we haven't had any complete cleaning since 2019. So, no, no, I think I understand. It's a question of quality, but sometimes we have the quality, we have to pay for it. I want to know if we plan an important increase. Second question then, would the update comparable to what is being done in neighboring municipalities? The answer to that question is yes and no. We are similar to Moncton, but we have particularities, some things that we require review. Some things are different, but there's small differences between municipalities. I mean, they give us what we're looking for, what we're asking for. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Spencer.
Merci. Est-ce que quelqu'un peut
Thank
poser une
you.
question?
Any more questions?
Non?
Oui,
Oui.
moi, Monsieur le maire, j'avais une question.
Oui.
I have a question.
Oui, Madame
Go ahead, Mr. Lemoutier.
Puis c'était juste une question d'intérêt.
And it's just a question of interest on the holdback that we make, the percentage that we put, once again, is like Mrs. Councilor Goodboot, is that standard with the industry? I found that the percentage, personally, I didn't think that it was that high and that it could have an impact. We talk about 1% and 3% of a given amount. Yet we really have to follow the new law of a given sector. So we have to follow that new law. Thank you very much.
Dernière chance.
Last chance.
Alors, ceux qui sont en faveur de la résolution,
All those in favor, say aye. Contrary minded, say nay.
y avait-tu un non?
Was there a no?
OK.
No,
Alors,
so yes. Carried as presented.
maintenant, au 10.4.
Now, 10.4.1. Monsieur Mnasso, you have in front of you a recommendation for the purchase of a mobile generator calling at tender three tenders were received Ophel, the one recommended 72,677 plus HSD. So it's within our equipment plan and it's within the estimated budget. So we recommend that you purchase it for the reading, Mrs. Boudreau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Your worship,
Le conseil
that
adjoint
council award the tender of the purchase of G70 mobile generator for the public works department battle equipment rentals at the cost of $72,106.67 plus HST pursuant to the proposal dated January 17, 2022, and authorize the expenditure be defrayed from account 4-3-12-7 to one general capital budget general equipment purchase water. I so move.
Proposé par le conseiller
Moved
Boudreau,
by Councillor Boudreau, seconded by
conseiller
Councillor Brido.
Question?
On the question.
Aucune question?
No question.
Personne qui veut être laissé dans le noir, alors on peut...
Nobody wants
On va être
to
sûr qu'on
be
a une
left
génératrice.
in the dark. Want to make sure we have generator.
Alors, ceux qui sont en faveur de la
All those in
résolution,
favor of the resolution say aye.
contraire par un non.
Reminded nay.
Sont adoptés tel que présenté.
Carried
Aux
as
conditions
presented.
4.2, achat de
10.4.2.
chauffeuse
Purchase
pour chargeur.
of a wheel loader
Exactement.
broom
Merci,
mover.
Monseigneur.
Thank you for
C'est un
mentioning it.
appel d'offres
So
directement
following
que
a call for tender
oui,
to will receive the equipment where they recommended 119,499
encore une fois, ça va
and
être
82 for the HSC. It
c'est
goes
pour
within
l'intérieur ou
our
des
program and it's
dossiers
under the
finales
estimated,
pour
the original estimated cost. We recommend to purchase it for
au niveau des travaux.
our equipment with Public
Merci
Works.
pour la lecture
Thank
de la
you for the reading
résolution.
of the
Monsieur
resolution.
Lantin.
Monsieur Lanting,
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
thank you, Worship.
Donc, que le conseil
That
appuie la
council award the
réservation
tender of the purchase of a wheel loader
pour le
broom
service
mover to the Public Works
convoi équipement
Department to convoy equipment at a cost of $119,499.82 plus HSD pursuant to proposal dated January 27, 2022 and authorized expenditure be defrayed from account number 3-20-20-12-7901 general capital budget general equipment purchase PW Public Works.
Proposition, c'est bien ça, OK. Alors,
You move.
proposé par le conseiller
Moved by
Lantin.
Councillor
Contraire
Lanting,
par le
seconded
conseiller
by
Robertson-Rouge.
Councillor George. What other question?
Question, question, Monsieur
Question?
Godet.
Monsieur Godet.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le
Yes,
maire.
thank you, Worship.
J'ai lu le document, puis la
I read
franchise,
the
en fait,
document and the
va
broom
remplacer le tracteur
mover. It will
27.
replace the new
C'est
Holland
pas un
tractor
équipement qui remplace
27.
un tracteur, mais ça
It
semble
is an equipment that replaces a
remplacer
tractor.
un excellent
I'd like
tracteur, puis ça prend
to know why it replaces the tractor. And
c'est pas le mot français, mais ça prend un front-end loader pour
you need a front end loader.
l'année où vous voulez l'utiliser.
Monsieur le maire, demandez à
Merci de la
monsieur le
question.
spécialiste du secteur.
As a financial person,
Merci pour la question.
thank you for the question.
C'est que
The reason
c'est
is that the new
versatile.
Holland is a versatile tractor.
Pour ça, il y avait principalement
And
ce qu'on
for
appelle un
that,
boom fleur,
there was one blower
on appelle ça un boom fleur, mais
and a boom flare.
dans Canada, où on achète présentement, j'ai même de la misère à le prononcer.
The
Ça
blower
fait
that we presently have,
question d'équipement parce qu'on a déjà
for a question of equipment, we have loader with us already. It was the simpler was to purchase such a machine, especially that New Holland is at the end of its lifetime and we need another tractor.
Juste une autre question. Ça, ça prend
Your question, so
loader
we will need the loader
pour l'utiliser.
to be used. Huh?
C'est bien ça, je pense.
Ouais.
That's right, Monsieur Dubé.
Oui, c'est ça. Oui.
Yes, that's right.
Alors, c'est une pièce d'équipement qui s'attache à un loader. Puis,
It's a piece of equipment that is attached to a loader, and the piece of equipment of loader is multi-use winter and summer. It is being used. The attachment is indicated on page 157 of your file
Avec la photo. C'est bien?
with the photograph. Other questions? More questions? No further questions. All those in favor, say aye. Just very reminded, nay.
Non?
Those against, no. Okay, carried as presented. That brings us to 10.4.3, contract snow removal. Here you have in front of you a contract for the amount of $181,440 maximum. It means an hourly of $360 an hour with Rock Service Limited. You know the situation, the January that we went through with the awful storms that we had. For snow removal and public safety, road security, we found important to go and get additional service to be able to widen the streets and intersection, and also to do some snow hauling. We made sure to go see all the potential suppliers from southeast, and this is the one that was available and showed an availability. So it's our recommendation to grant this contract $181,490 for the reading of the resolution.
Monsieur Thibodeau.
Monsieur Thibodeau.
Avec un micro, ça irait mieux, Monsieur Thibodeau.
With a mic, Monsieur Thibodeau.
OK, on va y aller avec Monsieur Lantin, c'est qui est
OK.
prêt.
Je l'ai.
I have it.
Oh, OK, allez-y.
Okay, go.
Je le conseille
That
accorde
council grant the contract for the snow removal service to Christian Alloc Service Limited at the hourly rate of $360 plus HSD to a maximum of $181,440 and outright that the expenditure be taken by about number 1-2-35-65-2650 general operating budget snow removal contract. I so move by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by someone,
La conseil.
Councillor Turgeois.
Sur la question.
On the question.
Question, Monsieur Lantin.
Question, Monsieur Lantin.
Monsieur Lantin, pas de
Monsieur
micro.
Lantin, no mic.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Your worship.
Donc, ma question
My question
s'intitule en même sens que
is the
vous
same question that was asked earlier. Who approved the contract with human resources that started in January? Here again, we approve a contract that started on February the 7th. It's hard for us.
Cette proposition-là, mais c'est difficile pour nous d'essayer de.
Not again this, but it's hard for us if we have to vote against because it's already underway. Is this something that is normal in nature? I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but
Voir qu'on doit voter sur quelque
to see
chose.
that we have to vote on something, a contract that has already started. As Councillor mentioned earlier, it's hard to vote against now that the contract has been granted.
Les alternatives sont pas trop belles.
The alternatives are not very good. If I may, it started on February the 7th, so it's 1 week. So we're still within our power to grant contract at this time. So tonight we're still within our authority as a municipality. I can assure you that it's not the current practice. We have two unique situations that present themselves, whether it's a human resources file, whether it's snowstorm, that snow that we had in September. We did have the crystal ball, and we followed the good practice as far as governance about this situation. We've had to make quick decision to make sure that the public health or public safety was a priority with all files. And if there's legal aspect, Monsieur Sima could probably add to my answer.
Oui.
So,
Monsieur
Monsieur Sima,
Merci, M. le maire.
Your
Pour
worship,
compléter ce que
is to
le
complete
porte-parole,
what the executive director was saying.
on a déjà fait une présentation là-dessus.
We've already made a presentation on public purchase. Generally speaking, we go according to the law. We always go according to the law. But what I'm trying to say is that in this case, specifically on the adoption of public purchase, I can give you the number 2014 153 2 in cases where there's an emergency and it's the case we could not plan the accumulation of snow that we would have this year and the other situation that we had. So in these cases, the law uh, foresee that we can conclude a public market in spite of the maximum or the ceiling for the well or service. If we talk about services that are strictly necessary and are imperious following events that could be obtained by calling the open tender or closed tender. So if we had to go into a tender call, there would be delays that would make the snow removal would have delayed and would have brought about some complaints. So
Ouais, non, je comprends très bien, puis
I
je comprends
understand very well, and
puis je ne remettais pas
I
la
was not
compétence de la ville à ce niveau-là. C'est
doubting
quand
the
même compliqué
competency of the city, and I'm sure you followed the law, but it was
des
just
règlements par rapport
to
à ça
know what the
pour
rules were.
le nouveau conseiller. Donc, maintenant, ben, ça répond à ta
Now,
question. Tu
it
as
answers my question. Thank you very
Merci.
much.
Est-ce que,
Thank you.
Monsieur Dupé, vous avez quelque chose à rajouter sur les circonstances, c'est ça?
Do you have anything to add?
Non, moi, je suis
No,
correct.
OK.
no, I'm fine.
Je pense qu'il y en a d'autres.
Another question,
Monsieur Godette, qui sera suivi de
Monsieur
Madame
Godet,
Godbout.
followed by Ms. Godbout.
Merci, Monsieur Dames.
Your worship,
Je comprends qu'on a eu des tempêtes,
understand we've had
je comprends qu'il y a eu
storms and they were
plusieurs routes.
big storm one after the other.
Pour, on va dire, le
Let's
futur
say
pour l'année
for the
prochaine,
future for next year, could we
des
have
prix à l'avance qu'on pourrait peut-être
prices in
utiliser
advance that
pour
we
faire
could use in case of an emergency?
tempête et tout, comme
It's
ça.
possible next year that we had similar storm.
Je connais pas vraiment les prix.
I
J'avais vu
really don't know the price, but $360 plus TVH an hour was quite expensive. Maybe for the future, for next year, maybe we should have some tender for so much an hour because
Review, ben, c'est
there's
sur mon.
equipment around Moncton. It's just a comment that I'm making.
Monsieur le maire, on peut certainement
Your worship,
retenir les commentaires
we
de Councilor
can
Godette.
retain
Normalement,
the
il y aurait une
comments
clause
of
de
Councilor
garde
Gazette when we
anticipée, malheureusement
call
pas.
a
Si jamais
tender.
il y avait
There's
besoin de ce genre
a
d'informations,
retainer
on aurait tout rattaché sur son dossier.
premium. There will be a cost without knowing if the service will be needed. That's what is part of the reflection we have to make following this summer. But we retain the comments and we'll
Merci.
Merci.
Madame Godbout.
make an evaluation. What is that? Ms. Goodboo, I have a question for when I went over the text, I retained the financial consideration, and I thought it part that it was brought to your attention because we're going outside of the approved budget because good governance, and I come back to Councillor Lotting of first year. I look guidance from you, and maybe new councillors are looking for that. We look at a file like this. I understood that it's within the discretion of the file. One of the issue is that we went outside the budget that was planned, but in the documents that you gave us the plan as to how it would be managed. So I was at ease with what was being proposed. Is that a good analysis is in these circumstances?
Actualité, conseillère
Here,
Godbout,
Councillor is was the total amount was over the authorized amount. That's why we're here before
avec
City Council with a
Councilor
contract with the 180, 181,000,
on a dépassé le seuil de
$140 when we go beyond the
si vous déduisez un
ceiling of their
on arrêterait après 9 mois.
municipality. If you what was the capacity?
Plus de près de toi et peut-être que Stéphane
Maybe Stefan would have it. Tell you it was over 50,000.
c'est peut-être Steve Landry ou Stéphane Thériault qui pourrait nous répondre à l'autorité que l'on offre. Je ne l'ai pas de mémoire.
I don't have it. Memory, Monsieur Terrio. It was $50,000, over 50,000. So if the amount had been under 50,000, I understand what you're saying. If it had been below, there would not have been a requirement to come to council. That's right. Is it still true, even if it would have made us go outside the budgeted amount. If the 50,000 had pushed us outside the budgeted amount, would we still have had to come to council? Well, not here. If we had adopted the budget, we would have met because the reserve at the end of the year could fill only at the end of the year. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It would have been a good training.
C'était
Thank you.
un bel exercice pour
It's a
motiver
good
les
exercise for
employés trois fins de semaine de
the
suite.
old back
Ça a demandé une visite au Kiro, puis
to shovel
il
three
a pensé qu'il
weekends.
m'avait pas
I
vu.
went to the Kiro. He reminded me, "What's 3 years?" I said, "You must be doing a good job."
Ceci étant dit, si tu as
This
parlé,
being said, all those in favor, say
Monsieur
aye.
Taylor par un oui,
Oui.
Delaney
Oui.
Contraire par un non.
Contrary minded, nay.
La résolution est adoptée telle que présentée.
Carried as presented.
Ça nous amène au 10.5, planification et
10.5
développement.
planning and
Section
development.
1. Fixer le date
10.5.1
pour une
set
publication
dates.
On fixe une date
You
pour une
have
réunion
to fix a
publique
date for a public
sur le
hearing.
plan du zonage sur
The zoning bylaw on portion of property 0010754 Nelson Road. Public hearing would be March the 14th, 2022 at 7 o'clock here. And we ask the written advice of PAC and the delay that is planned to go to March 28th in case. And if this is for a unit of, it's a building of 10 units. And if we talk about the 6 Gova that is on Gova Street, we talk about relocation of the residents on Melanson Road. And it's within the frame of our downtown. So we must go to an amendment of the zoning bylaw that is undertaken tonight so as to authorize the dates and undertake the
Merci
process
pour la lecture de
to
la
read
résolution.
the resolution.
Turgeon Roy.
This is Turgeon Roy.
Merci, Monsieur Barre.
Your worship,
Que le
that
Conseil schedule une audience
council
publique
schedule a public
pour
hearing on March
planifier
14,
absolument
2022 at
que
7
le
p.m.
Dieppe
at the Dieppe
rende
City
l'opposition
Hall
au
to
municipal
hear
à la carte
objection
municipale
retaining to
pour
the
arrêter
proposed zoning
délibérant
bylaw,
Z-10
zoning bylaw
visant à
Z-10
considérer
2021
de
for
laisser sous
portion of the land
vide
identified
les
under
lots
PID
C5
009875993,
et que le Conseil demande
and
l'avis
that council
des
has a
experts du
written
Conseil d'urbanisme
advice
pour
of the Planning
déterminer
Advisory
si
Council and
l'article 110
uh, extend the
de
delays
la loi sur deux
under
mandats
bylaw
28 mars
110-3 of the
Monsieur le maire.
Community Planning Act, with a correction.
Bid finit avec un
The
4
bid
et non
ends with a 4 and not a 3,
J'ai
yes.
dit 3. OK.
Did I say 3? Oh, sorry.
3, 7, 5, 9.
It's 9 4.
C'est ça, alors que tel que,
So,
avec, avec la correction,
with the correction,
qui appuie la résolution?
who supports it?
Quelqu'un peut appuyer, M. Thibodeau.
Seconder, Monsieur
Opposition.
Thibodeau.
Alors, question.
Question.
M. Thibodeau.
Monsieur Thibodeau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
To you,
Vous m'entendez
worship.
bien?
Can you hear me? Yes.
OK. Ma question, c'est quand je regardais
When I look
le design là,
at the
du
design
bâtiment,
of the building in
on
question,
dirait qu'on laissait une partie,
I noticed that
on laisse une
we
partie du terrain à droite.
were leaving part of the property on the right,
Il est plus un peu plus en retrait.
and we put the
Je
building
me demandais pourquoi
at
ça.
a withdrawal. I was wondering why,
Très
because
vers
if we put it closer to the central street, it would
terrain sur
leave us more property if we want to do something else.
une question
So
que je me posais.
it's the question I was asking myself.
Je ne sais pas si quelqu'un a la réponse.
I don't know if someone would have an answer. I can ask Mr. Gerard to answer the question.
Merci beaucoup. C'est une
Thank you
très
very
bonne
much.
question.
It's a very good question, and
On a eu une discussion à l'interne sur ce
we had
point-là.
internal decision on that,
La conclusion était que,
and the conclusion was,
il y a un ruisseau qui
first
passe
of all, there's
à
a
cet
brook
endroit-là.
that
Puis,
crosses
si
in
on se
that area,
rapprocherait
and
des
if we were to get
arbres
closer
qui longent la
to
sentière,
the land that
laisser un
goes along Central, we would leave a space
un canopé
uh,
mature
to
d'arborage
have a mature
d'ombre
canopy
qui
on the
restera
property, so we
lié
don't
au
necessarily
cycle
want to
naturel de cette
stop
forêt
the natural
forêt qui, étant donné que c'est
state of that
une habitation
since it was not
différente à celle
the
qui se retrouve sur la rue
the
centrale,
building is
était
different than
on
Central
a
Street.
décidé
We
de
thought it
prendre
was
le
wise
30
to
mètres
leave about
pour
30 meters
D'accord,
to
je
that end.
savais pas qu'il y avait un
Thank you.
ruisseau,
I
mais
didn't know there was a
en
brook
fait, c'est tout le
there.
temps qu'il y a un
In
ruisseau
fact,
qui
I'm
coule
glad that we leave a
tout le
zone
long de la rue centrale. Merci
behind
beaucoup.
Central Street. Very good. Thank you.
Autre question?
Any other question?
Non? Alors,
No?
ceux qui sont en faveur de la
All those in
résolution, ceux qui sont
favor,
en
say
faveur
aye.
Oui,
Oui.
OK, si je peux
Okay.
entendre au moins un oui, là.
If
OK.
I can hear one at least.
Alors, quelqu'un contre?
Can be reminded.
Personne contre? Alors,
Nobody
c'est
against.
accepté tel
So
que
carried
présenté.
as presented.
Ça nous amène maintenant au
That brings us to number
numéro 11 sur les
11,
procédés municipaux, 11.1,
municipal bylaws 11.1, bylaws Z-2025 122 relating to the installation of water system along a portion of Work Road. For reading of the summary.
C'est la lecture sommaire, alors ce sera
It's a summary
183.
C'est ça.
on page
Alors, pour la
83.
lecture de...
So for the reading of summary.
Pardon?
du sommaire,
What?
lecture du sommaire.
The reading of summary.
Quelqu'un pour la lecture?
Someone for the reading.
Monsieur
I can
Thibodeau?
do it. Monsieur Thibodeau.
Merci. Vous m'entendez?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes.
Oh. Arrêté Z25 2022.
Bylaw Z25 2022, a bylaw of the municipality of Dieppe relating to the installation of a water system along board pursuant to the authority vested in it by ceremony NB 2017 Chapter 18 Dieppe City Council adopt as follow. One, definition. Two, cost recoverable of a cost calculation of user charge for payment, connection of municipal water, and six, right to withhold water as a move. Moved by Councilor Thibodeau, seconded by
Le conseiller Brideau?
Councilor Brideau.
Sur la question.
On the question.
Aucune question? Ceux qui sont en faveur?
Question, all those in favor say aye.
Oui.
C'est l'avis contraire par un non.
Could be reminded nay.
Alors, l'arrêté... Excusez-moi, l'arrêté...
So bylaw said 25
pour l'année 2022.
for the year 2022.
Installation du réseau d'aqueduc
Installation of aquatic serving portion of Book Road is adopted in summary reading. That brings us to the third and reading by title only. Monsieur Thibodeau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw Z 25 2022 relating to the installation of water system along a portion of Borg Road. I move in third reading by title only.
Proposé par le conseiller Thibodeau.
Moved by Councilor Thibodeau,
Ma mémoire m'échappe.
seconded by Councilor Lantin.
C'est ça, c'était M. Brideau. C'est vrai.
Monsieur Brideau.
Appuyez pour M. Brideau, merci. On va faire ça plus facile pour ceux-là qui doivent...
We'll make it easier for those who have to correct those things.
Appuyé par le conseiller Brideau sur la question.
On a question.
Aucune question. Alors, ceux qui sont en
No
faveur,
question. All those in favor say aye. Get reminded, say nay.
la résolution est adoptée telle que
Carried
présentée.
as presented.
Maintenant, pour
Now,
l'arrêté
for bylaw
26
Z26
pour l'année 2022
for
concernant
the year
l'installation
2022 relating the installation of the waste and sanitary
la portion du chemin
sewer system along a portion of Nassau Road.
Monsieur le maire.
lecture sommaire. Encore
Summary reading. Monsieur Thibodeau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Your Worship.
Arrêté Z26
Bylaw Z 26 2022, a bylaw of the municipality of Dieppe relating to the installation of a water and sanitary sewer system along a portion of National Road pursuant to authority given by the local governance as New Brunswick 2017. The Dieppe Council adopted as follows: one definition, two costs recoverable on a user charge basis, three calculation of user charge for payments, five connection to municipal water service and sanitary, six right to the withhold water. I move in summer reading.
Proposé en lecture sommaire
Moved
et
by summer reading by
secondé
Councillor
et
Thibodeau
appuyé par
and seconded by Councillor
Dantaigne.
Dantin
Question.
on the question.
Aucune question. Alors,
No
ceux qui sont
question.
pour la résolution,
All
s'il vous
those
plaît.
in favor say aye.
Oui.
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 Les contraires par un
Yes.
non.
Contrary minded nay.
C'est adopté tel que
Carried
présenté.
as presented.
Alors, pour la lecture
So
sommaire, je vais
for the
commencer par
summer
le
reading, we'll
troisième.
proceed with the third reading by title only.
Thibodeau.
Mr. Thibodeau,
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
thank you, Worship.
Arrêté
Bylaw
Z26
Z 26 2020 relating to the installation of a water and sanitary sewer system along a portion of Melanson Road. I move in third reading by title only.
C, proposé par le conseiller
Moved by
Thibodeau.
Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Dantin on the question.
Aucune question.
No
Les
question.
contraires de la
All
résolution.
those in favor of the resolution say aye.
Oui.
L'avis contraire par un non.
Contrary minded, nay.
Je retourne en arrière. L'arrêté
Bylaw,
Z26
bylaw Z26 is
troisième et dernière
adopted in
c'est ça, Z26 est accepté en troisième et dernière
is adopted in
lecture.
third final reading.
L'item 11.
Item 11.11,
Alors, l'arrêté 11.3 pour l'arrêté
11.3 bylaw C34
en première lecture
in
et deuxième lecture
first and second reading by title only
pour faire avancer les choses.
to
Pour
make things
lecture
go forward. The reading of this resolution.
M. Lantaigne.
Monsieur Dantin,
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
your worship,
Arrêté de la ville de
a
Dieppe
bylaw of the city
concernant
of
les
Dieppe
possibles chantiers.
concerning
Arrêté
streets. No, no,
Vous
no,
avez ça?
no.
Oui, c'est ça, j'avais ça, oui.
Juste par titre seulement.
Title only.
Le titre de l'arrêté, c'est ça?
The title of the bylaw.
On fait la proposition.
I move
L'arrêté concernant les
concerning streets, sidewalks, and rails.
proposé par le conseiller
Moved
Lantaigne.
by Councillor Dantin in first reading and seconded by Monsieur Thibodeau on a question. All
Conseiller Godbout.
Councillor Godbout.
On présente ce soir deux
Tonight
arrêtés
we're
pour
presenting
recevoir
two
des
bylaws.
informations au sujet
What
de
to have
coûts
information
d'administration des
about the administration cost for a bylaw. Monsieur Simard. Thank you. I don't have information at the present time, but it should not change very much the cost upward or downward. But where it was done is a refreshing work and an update of an old bylaw. Bylaw 78, 78.6 that we are replacing by C34. So bylaw, you have it from page 203. Is that bylaw that required, for instance, the most recent amendment to that bylaw was the police chief that was supervising. So we needed an update, and there's quite a few elements that were required by the drafting of that new version of this on road, sidewalk, and the trail. Trail was added before we only had the streets and sidewalks. We did not foresee to stop people to cut trees along a trail or to hinder the passage or it was not question of work of a special vehicle that could be stopped from traveling. So that C34 that we're proposing is replacing ILO 78. So it's meant to correct certain lack that we had before.
Ça répond à votre
Est-ce
question?
Does
Oui.
that answer your question?
Qu'est-ce qu'on
Yes.
compte faire dans ce cas-là
Then in that
du
case,
suivi ou est-ce qu'on a
do we
des
plan to have
estimations
follow
au
up?
niveau de
Do
savoir
we have
combien
data? Do we
on a
follow to
dépensé
see
arrêtés ou différentes choses
how
comme ça
much we
pour
receive per
estimer
bylaw? And if we have the data,
l'utilisation de l'ancien arrêté qu'on est en
how,
train de mettre à jour?
On a un logiciel qu'on
we
essaie
have
de faire là, à l'interne
we have our AFA,
de cette
an internal
application
system inside
les
that
plaintes
is
sur
used to register the complaints on bylaw
des arrêtés
that
utilisés.
the that is being
On a
used
d'autres services aussi
and other services also
cette
with the city.
application-là. Donc,
So
on tient à jour les plaintes, les
we
interventions,
keep up to date the complaints and everything that is
tout
done
type de plainte là, pour tous les
concerning all
arrêtés
kinds of bylaw or complaints and all the
J'ai
follow up. I
j'ai
don't
pas
have
de statistiques
I don't have statistics
précisément à
in
l'application,
hand as to the
mais
application.
j'imagine que c'est quelque chose qui est possible de faire
It's probably
assez
possible to do it. I can't confirm it today, but I could check it out
qu'est-ce qu'on a comme
as to what we have as far as
trottoirs
complaints is
qui vont
street sidewalks
détecter là,
that becomes trails and
J'aurais
s-
peut-être sinon une dernière question sur,
that brings me to
sur
a
cette
final
partie-là,
question
mais
on this
ça peut
bylaw
être le deuxième aussi.
and applies to the second one
Lorsqu'on
also.
introduit un nouvel
How
arrêté
do we introduce a new bylaw in the
qui a
city
été implanté,
when
etc.,
it's
il y a des
implemented,
choses dans
adopted?
l'arrêté qu'on présente
There's a lot of beautiful things in the
qui sont
bylaw,
respectés.
practices that we would like to respect. What is the measure that is taken when we want to introduce a bylaw? What is the process?
C'est quoi le processus
What is the
d'implantation d'un
process
nouveau arrêté
to implement
dans
a
un
new
contexte
bylaw,
municipal
including when we are amending something for the citizen normally? In this case, what it will be is that the adoption, what a fourth reading, the one summary,
quand il y a des éléments
when
saillants
there are
au niveau de l'arrêté,
elements, major
les
elements of a
recommandations
reading as the population. We
concernant
work
les
in
documents
concert with the communication service for these elements. In this case, we'll have to scratch our eye because it's not totally a new bylaw. It's more a refreshing. There's a few new elements, but new elements of prohibition, if you wish. So we will certainly be able to work
avec le service des communications.
with the communication service and inform the population.
Merci.
Thank you.
Merci. Alors,
Thank you.
d'autres questions pour le moment?
No other questions for the time being.
Le vote, alors ceux qui sont en faveur de la
All
résolution,
those in favor,
oui.
say aye.
Oui. De l'avis contraire, non.
Contrary minded, nay.
Alors, l'arrêté C34
Bylaw C34
est
2022
adopté en première
is
lecture.
adopted first reading
On va
by
procéder maintenant au
title
deuxième
only
vote.
and now the second reading
Encore une fois, par titre
once again by
personnel.
title only.
Qui c'était?
C'est de
M.
moi.
Lantaigne.
Shooting.
Merci. Un
Thank you.
arrêté de la ville de
Bylaw
Dieppe concernant les
C34
rues, les trottoirs et les sentiers dont je suis
concerning
seul
street sidewalks and trails, also in second reading by title only.
Et pour qui avait appuyé, c'était
Who seconded?
Thibodeau. Alors,
Councillor Thibodeau.
proposé par le conseiller
Moved by
Lantaigne.
Councillor Lanting, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau.
La
That we
deuxième
proceed with the
lecture
second reading
par titre seulement
by
sur
title only
résolution
on the vote. All those in
C34.
favor say aye.
Oui.
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 De l'avis contraire par un non.
Contrary minded, nay.
L'arrêté C34-2022 est accepté en deux.
C34 2022 is adopted in second reading, title
Ça nous
only.
amène
This brings us to
l'arrêté
bylaw
C35-2022 concernant
C35 2022 concerning tall grass
pour la première et deuxième
for the
lecture.
first and second reading.
Qui veut en faire la lecture?
Who wants to read
La
it?
lecture
First
par
reading
titre seulement.
by title only.
Monsieur Godet.
Monsieur Godet,
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
your worship, bylaw C35 2022 concerning tall grass.
Juste ça, juste parti.
No, that's the title only.
Appuyé par
Supported by, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy.
sur la question.
On the question.
Sur la question,
On the
Madame.
question, Mrs. Godbout.
Oui, merci. Encore deux petites questions.
Once again,
Sur
two
ce
small
fameux projet
questions.
de ville. C'est quoi la source? C'est quoi
What is the
le standard
source
du 20
and
cm?
the standards of 20 centimeters? Where does that come from? Where do we take this? We take it in several cities around here. It's quite standard as far as lead is concerned. And in the case of a drought, well, we would say we want to impose it. We'll give a measure not to apply it if we want people. Thank you for your question. I have to know that element of the land of the lawn. Well, we created a separate bylaw because lawn is something that is maintained in itself or it stays on its own. We expect we have several amendments of bylaws that are coming procedural, but there's some on water storage that will be an important one, and it dates from 78 also with amendment, and it's a bylaw that is quite high, quite harsh. So the bylaw on water and storage as to the spraying will come back in case of a drought. It will stop the people from, in case of drought, the level of water of the surface are low, so we don't plant anything for the land during the drought period. So it's something to consider because during this period, maybe we could have something longer for the well-being of the lawn. I'm not an expert, but I found there was a relationship between the two. My second, excuse me, I can check it. Nevertheless, there must be standards. There might be a length also, but after a certain length, is it good or bad? I don't know. I'm not an expert on. People invest a lot in their lawn, and thank you. Second question has to do with paragraph 2 or 3, and it's a question of language. When we talk of undertaking penal charge, yes, there are fines that can be imposed. Sometimes in drafting, we can misinterpret things. Thank you for the clarification.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you. Mrs. Boudreau,
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
your worship,
Pour mes questions
are you
environnementales.
ready for my environmental
On va
question?
commencer. So,
I will start.
premièrement,
First of all,
je me demandais, dans la
I was
définition de
wondering
mauvaise herbe,
the
qu'est-ce qu'on
definition
définit par
of
mauvaise herbe? Parce
bad
que pour moi,
grass. What do we understand by bad grass? There's two definitions.
environnemental et
The
aussi
environmental definition or
côté
ethical,
environnemental,
because there's a environmental
sont les
side.
verges d'or, les
The
astèges,
verge d'or,
bénéfiques à
some
l'environnement,
plants are
puis qui sont
beneficial
bénéfiques
to
à nos
the
pollinisateurs, à l'inverse.
environmental, and then there's the
L'environnement, c'est
opposite,
les orties,
the lawn,
des mauvaises herbes qui sont juste néfastes.
bad
L'herbe parfaite,
grass.
c'est ce qui cause les rhinites saisonnières. So, je me demandais qu'est-ce qu'on définit
Just
comme
wondering, what do we define as a reserve? In fact, there's two different green grass. What is that ray grass can be considered as bad grass? We're not that bad at the application, and we don't know uh, we don't go very far, but of course,
on pourrait intervenir dans ce type de cas-là.
there are certain cases where we could intervene under reserve that we have to go and
L'expertise dans ces
get
cas-là.
the expertise in that case, which I don't have, and
Direction des arrêtés n'ont pas nécessairement.
the people in charge of bylaws don't have the expertise. It's easier to know what is not than what it is. Some people have a lawn, and is it bad grass? Well, gray grass. It's not a plant. It's it's not the official plant. So
Ouais, je me demande si ça vaudrait la
I
peine
wonder if it would be worthwhile
dans ça, qu'est-ce qui est mauvaise
to
herbe.
look into it if it's
Puis
bad
si quelqu'un laisse
grass, because I say if someone
son gazon, mais garde
cut the
certaines
lawn but
plantes
keep certain plants
random dans son terrain
random
qui sont
in,
bénéfiques
on his property that are
à
beneficial
l'environnement, est-ce que
to
quelqu'un
the environment, can someone
cette
complain?
personne-là va être
And that
payée
person
une amende à cause de ça?
will be fined for that reason. Well, we don't receive complaints in practice on the kind of grass that are. The complaints we receive has to do with
Le type d'herbe, tant qu'il y a de la couverture
when there's a green vegetable to cover it. But then the alliance normally is we receive. Well, it's something over the years because the green lawn style is something that will change with my generation and the younger generation. Something that is more and more, there's more and more value because we are aware that just to value the garden, but there's fertilizer, and we use a quantity of water to maintain that. The second thing, what do we define as vacant property? Is it property that belong to someone, like a property, but that is not developed, or any vacant property is considered as such?
vous êtes pas mal proche de la bonne définition. Là,
You're
ça
close to
tourne
the
autour
right. It's a property that is not developed. Sometimes the high grass will grow. One of the challenges that we have is these property belong to companies whose headquarters is in another province, so it's quite difficult to
pousse toutes sortes de choses. Puis,
all kinds of things grow on it. So these are vacant property. There's no building and nobody will take care of it. And quite often, these are accidental. It's not necessarily a flat property where it's easy to cut the lawn. So there are challenges. And there also, there's a lot. There's everywhere. So, well, I was wondering, why do we make exception for vacant property? Because for me, that's where the problem is. And real bad grass. I was wondering if we have an inventory of these property, and when we recommended to cut once in mid-July and once mid-August to avoid that the pollen would fly over and cause more problems of allergy. It risks costing more in human resources, inconvenience, trouble, anything else. So, unfortunately.
Puis, je pense que c'est pas mal ça mes questions.
Well, that's about my question. One more. Could we not have added to this bylaw a date, maybe, to say that we allow May? We would start implementing that bylaw on June the 1st until October the 1st, let's say, or something like that. Yeah, no, well, It's a pilot project we had last year.
qui a généré beaucoup de succès.
We
On
had
voit beaucoup
a
les
lot of
réactions
success
envoyées
on media,
par les
social
enfants,
media. We had some
beaucoup de gens qui sont
great
intervenus
comments. A
pour
lot of people
savoir qu'à la ville, il y a beaucoup de
made
personnes
comments in the city. A lot of
qui ne
people
connaissent pas
complained.
qui s'ennuient.
It's not everybody
C'est pas tout le monde qui
that
veut
likes
rencontrer des terrains
dandelions
inondés. Ça donne un peu
or property
l'idée
that
par rapport à la ville
look
qui est
neglected.
rasée, coupée droit.
So that is
Pour cette année,
for this year.
on va devoir réfléchir encore
We will
à
have to
bien
think
montrer. C'est
again
sûr que la ville est une
about
ville verte. Là,
it's our city is a green city. We don't hide ourselves.
c'est intéressant, mais
We've
on
had
manque un peu d'idées
interesting
par rapport à
results, but before
quand même
we go
faire
on
toutes les vérifications
in that
nécessaires
direction, we'll
pour ce
have
qui
to
peut faire, puis
check to see what
éviter qu'est-ce
is
qui a mal été
possible
fait,
of
puis
doing,
qu'est-ce
what
qui peut
went
être
well,
amélioré.
what went bad, and maybe there are corrections to be made.
La démarche a été
And
intéressante, mais je ne peux
the,
pas vous garantir
the
aujourd'hui
undertaking was interesting, but I can't
qu'on
guarantee you
permettra
today.
d'arrêter
I'm not ready to
qu'on
put
va
in the bylaw that
interdire ou qu'on va
we
limiter
will prohibit or allow the land over 20 centimeters in May. If we do it, it will be pilot project, as I said,
il n'y a rien
but
qui nous empêchera
nothing is would stop us afterwards to fix it
de régler ça.
and to settle it.
Question intéressante.
It's an interesting question, and we are making note of it.
Peut-être qu'on pourrait garder en même temps,
Maybe we
s'il
could
y a
look at the
des
same
villes
time if
avant-gardistes
there's other cities
supplémentaires, peut-être qui ont
that are
trouvé des
avant-gardistes.
endroits
We could look
d'arrêter un peu plus
examples
progressistes
of more progressive bylaws, environmentally speaking.
Oui, vous avez raison. Même notre projet
You're
pilote
right. Even our
a généré
pilot project
beaucoup de réactions.
generated several reactions from other cities and even in other provinces.
On a été innovant de ce côté-là, vous avez raison.
You're right.
C'est bien. D'autres questions?
Fine. Other question, Mrs. Goodwill?
Non, juste pour.
No.
Merci, conseillère Boudreau.
Thank you, Councilor Boudreau. I agree with her to see the possibility, a lot of potential of amendment, but there's a lot of discussion that could be had. You raise things. I don't see a lot of discretion, so I don't think it's something that we discuss. For me, presently, I don't see favorably the bylaw in question. There should be more flexibility. It shouldn't be hard to do it. So I think we have to recognize we want to evolve as a city on these issues, and we must be open to do things differently. Thank you for that.
Merci. Alors,
Thank you
pour le vote,
for the vote.
première lecture,
First reading.
ceux qui sont en faveur de la
All
résolution,
those in
dites
favor,
oui.
say aye.
Oui.
Oui.
Contrary minded, say nay.
Non.
Non.
No.
OK. Un nom qui est enregistré pour Mme
I know
Boudreau.
that is registered for Mrs. Boudreau and Mrs. Goodwill. And Mrs. Goodwill.
C'est bien.
Fine.
OK. Alors, l'arrêté est accepté en première.
Bylaw is carried, adopted the first reading.
Deuxième lecture.
For the second reading by title only,
Encore une fois, c'était
once again, it was
M. Godet qui avait fait la lecture.
Monsieur Godet. Please,
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Your Worship.
Arrêté
Bylaw C-35, 2022, concerning tall grass. I move in second reading.
En deuxième lecture, participe
Second reading by title only, moved by Councillor Godet, seconded by
la conseillère Turgeon-Roy.
Councillor Turgeon-Roy.
Ceux qui sont en faveur de la résolution
Those in favor
sur la question.
on the question.
Je pense qu'on a déjà enregistré pas
I
mal
think
de
we've registered
sur
the comments on the first reading.
Vous avez d'autres
Do you
commentaires?
have more comments, Mrs. Boudreau?
Allez-y.
Go ahead.
Juste un petit commentaire.
A small comment.
Quand j'ai vu l'arrêté,
When I saw the
j'étais pas en
bylaw,
faveur pour.
I was not in favor, and I
Demander ce sujet-là ou de
I thought of amending the process.
comment se sentent
I don't
les
know
conseillers sur ça.
what the councillors feel on that, if they agree.
Pousser la réflexion à un autre
Maybe we should push a reflection another time or go forward to define more that bylaw.
que les autres en
Tout
pensent.
additionnel, ça
Oui.
n'empêche pas qu'on peut faire des réflexions si le conseil souhaite apporter des réflexions additionnelles. Alors ici, ça reflète qu'est-ce qui était
Mike,
auparavant intégré à notre arrêté. Alors on a pris copier-coller de qu'est-ce qui était en place.
we look what was in place, but if the council we should have a discussion on certain elements, we can certainly have an item brought at the policy and strategy that we would make us have an open discussion if that's what you wish.
On verra ça dans
We'll see
dans le
to
futur.
it
Je pense pas que
in the
c'est quelque chose
future.
qu'on
I
va
don't think
finir ce
it's
soir.
something we'll settle tonight.
Finir
Something we can
avec les
finish
commentaires de tout le
unless
monde.
there's more.
Puis
We can finish with the vote,
les directeurs généraux
and
ont mentionné
the
si
executive director mentioned it. If the council wants to
avoir d'autres
discuss it
discussions.
more, if we would have more
Je pense qu'il y a
discussion,
la place pour
it's certainly there's room for
lors de notre
to be had
réunion
during
du troisième lundi du
the third Monday
discussion sur
when we have a discussion on all kinds of issues.
on veut tous continuer à améliorer
We all want to continue to improve our community. There's all kinds of ways to do it.
chaque membre du conseil a droit à ses
Each member have a right to their opinion. That's why we're here.
Alors, pour le
So,
vote,
for the vote,
sont en faveur
of those in favor of
de la résolution en deuxième
the
lecture.
resolution in second reading, say aye.
Oui.
Non.
Oui.
L'avis contraire par un non.
Contrary-minded, nay.
Non.
J'imagine les deux mêmes noms que
Imagine the same two no as for first reading.
Alors, c'est noté.
It's noted.
Ceci termine
This
de motion.
completes
Des explications.
notice of motion. Is there any?
Non. Alors,
No.
demande de renseignement et annonce
Inquiries and announcement by members of council. I try to remember
avec M. Lantaigne.
where we were at. I start with Monsieur Lantin, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you, Your Worship.
Juste deux points pour moi.
Just two issues with me.
Deux choses que je voulais souligner.
Two things I want to underline.
Vous l'avez possiblement vu, mais
You may have seen it.
Coupe Canada de vélo de montagne qui a eu lieu à Dieppe a été nommé Ville de l'année
The cup
en vélo de montagne par Cyclisme Canada.
one from Dieppe was named cyclists. I want to congratulate the organizers, and I think it's going well for next year. Congratulations to the organizer, and congratulations to Camille Frenet of Dieppe. He was appointed athlete of the year in the country by Triathlon Canada. Congratulations once again for that well-worth recognition. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. That brings us Mrs. Godbout.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Your Worship, for tonight. A lot of activities since the last meeting at Fires Committees to which I'm assigned to represent the city. A lot of meetings of these board, nothing to report. Things are going well. I also want to update you on the committee, the amount that we provide to help nonprofit organizations. I'm looking a francophone submission. I have a hard time to find people who are interested in running for the committee office. It's women that meet. It's $10,000 that's available 3 times a year to help an organization in the community. The last one that was presented was in February. It was an nonprofit organization called BL Foundation that sustained the support family in difficult situation. So I know we have comparable organization in Dieppe. It's a beautiful project to have the support of these people. So if you could be interested, if you're Francophone women who would like to join the team, we are recruiting. The more we get together, the better it will be. That's all I wanted to mention. Good evening, and thank you all the employees who are here tonight, and the lovers, husband, wife. Thank you for making your lovers available to us to take care of the city business. Thank you, Mrs. Jean Roy. Your worship.
Monsieur Brideau, vous pouvez
Monsieur
continuer
Brito,
votre tour, là,
Ben,
ça
you
prend
don't
juste.
want to wait for your turn.
juste que j'oublie pas de
It's
sonner
just
parce que ma batterie va lâcher d'une fraction de
my
seconde.
battery would let
Fait que je
go.
viens juste de saluer
I
avant.
just wanted to greet you. Oh,
Salut.
my battery will die any minute now. Good evening,
Madame Turgeon, s'il vous plaît.
Merci.
Mr. Jean
Merci,
Roy.
Monsieur le maire.
Thank
Donc,
you, worship.
ce que je souhaite faire présentement,
What I
c'est vraiment les
want to
questions,
do,
les commentaires de la
it
part des
follows
résidents
questions and
pendant
comments from residents that I've received recently
un sujet de l'heure, dans le fond.
with a
Puis là, on va
subject
vraiment une prise
of
de
the day.
contexte puis une affirmation.
There's a
Premièrement, je vais
statement.
souligner ensuite
First, I would like
la
to
bonne
start
nouvelle
by underlining
de la semaine dernière
the
que
good
vraiment
news from last
le
week.
dernier recensement
The
confirme
last
que
census
Dieppe a eu une
confirmed that
forte
Dieppe had
croissance
one of the
démographique, on va
strongest
dire.
growth in the
Dieppe
population in
est
New-Brunswick.
toujours en
Dieppe
mode croissance et
is always on a growing mode, and we can be proud of it.
on sait tous cependant que la
We all
croissance
know, however, that growth
est la
brings
logique d'un
opportunities, but it
développement.
brings also
Donc, malgré
challenges.
les nombreux projets
So, in
de
spite
construction
of
résidentielle
all the
dans la communauté,
residential building project in the
un
community,
défi dont nous
one
entendons
of the
parler
challenge that we
ainsi
hear about
comme
in
dans
the
d'autres municipalités,
as
celui
in
qui
other
nuit
responsibility is
cependant
that of
par rapport à la
housing,
disponibilité et
especially
aussi à l'augmentation
dealing with the increase in the cost and the availability, whether it's young families,
des travailleurs âgés
students,
et la dépendance.
seniors.
Le défi du logement
The
touche différents
challenge
secteurs
of housing touches a
aussi
lot of
celui de
sectors
la
if we want to make
sécurité
sure
pour
that
les
our
logements
present
suffisants et
population
abordables,
have
et
sufficient and
l'attraction
affordable housing and
de
we
nouveaux
continue to
résidents à Dieppe.
maintain new
C'est
residents to
important
Dieppe,
pour nous
it would be important for
d'agir
us
fermement dans ce
and
sens
for
comme un maire
the
proactif
people
dans
responsible for
l'entretiennent leur
housing to
dossier.
have a long term
Cela
mission in the
implique
file. It would
de
be
voir ce
important
que nous pouvons
to
faire
see what we
pour
can
financer le
do
logement,
in
mais
the
également
housing and to
sur la
examine the
disponibilité
leverage
financière
with the
de notre
availability
stratégie de logement
to make sure a good
suffisant.
strategy of housing and
Tout en
residential
respectant les
policy in
objectifs
Dieppe
de
while
développement durable.
keeping
C'est
sustainable
ainsi que
development.
je voulais
This
passer
is what
mon
I
quelques
wanted
minutes
to
pour
give
vraiment
as a message in 4 minutes.
puis c'est
Uh,
des sujets qu'il faut commencer à
Conscientious effort,
discuter
and these are subjects we have to start talking about and to
mon
plan our
expérience, une
growth.
belle
That's
semaine.
all. I wish you a good week.
Merci.
Thank you,
Monsieur Thibodeau.
Monsieur Thibodeau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Bishop.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui.
Can, can you hear
OK.
me?
Bon,
Yes.
moi, j'ai
Well,
seulement un point ce soir.
only
C'est
one item tonight.
j'aimerais remercier et
Simply, I would
féliciter
like
les
to
gens de
thank and
New-Brunswick pour le
congratulate
travail qu'ils ont fait
publicly the work
dernièrement
that they did
avec tout le ménage qu'on a
for
eu.
snow removal with all the snow we had.
Ils ont réussi à
I
maintenir
think they
les
succeeded
rues
in
ouvertes, puis
maintaining
les
all the
gens
streets open, and
sont bien contents.
the people are
Bon,
quite happy,
il y a
very
des endroits
happy.
où
There are
on est
places
plus
where
large, mais
we
ça
would
va s'en
like
venir parce que
them to be wider. It will come. We know it will come.
mais
We
je
can't do
suis
everything at
très
once.
reconnaissant
I'm
parce que
very
le nombre d'heures
grateful.
qu'ils passent
I
là-dessus.
know the number of hours they
Un
spent
gros
on
merci
it, so
et
a big
j'espère que le
thank you.
message leur
And
sera
I
passé.
hope the message will be
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
passed on to them. Thank you and good evening, one and all.
Peut-être que le message a
You can be
déjà
sure that the message
été
has already
envoyé
been
par
given to
le
the
manager
employees
puis au
from the
conseil.
manager and myself on behalf of council.
Des fois, on n'est pas toujours conscient
Sometimes we're
du
not
nombre
always aware of the number of hours
d'heures
and
sur notre
the
personnel.
demands on our
C'est un peu
staff
l'envie
when
dans la région.
we are the envy
On
of
souhaite que les
the
services soient
metropolitan.
meilleurs. Ceci étant dit, on va
That being
continuer
said,
avec
we'll continue.
M. Brideau, qui est toujours avec
Monsieur
nous.
Brideau, who's still with us, hurry up.
Oh, je vais faire ça vite parce que je te réveille, ça va s'éteindre. Ben, écoutez, M. le maire, j'ai
Listen, Your
entendu
Worship.
votre message
I heard your message.
à Radio-Canada.
If you send it to, I heard it on Radio Canada. On behalf of the city, which worked well as Councillor Thibodeau mentioned, our employees, we can be proud of the work that was done. Besides that, that's all.
On s'en va très bien vers
We're
des
going
diminutions
well
de restrictions du COVID. Alors,
towards
on va
the
continuer comme ça.
removal of the restriction of COVID. Let's be positive. Good evening, everyone, and thank you. I leave you because it's going to die any
Merci,
minute.
Madame
Bye bye, Miss Boudreau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Worship.
Moi puis José, Turgeon, on pense les mêmes
To Joe and myself, we think
J'avais préparé
alike
comme
and
quelque chose de
prepared
semblable.
something similar.
Cette semaine, j'ai
This
fait
week,
la lecture d'un document qui
I
s'appelle
read a
Les
document
intentions
that
des
is called
municipalités
The
canadiennes
Intention of Canadian Municipalities in the Development of Plan of Action in, in the field of lodging.
Ça fait plusieurs fois
And I
qu'on
thought
parle
we've been
de
talking
plan
about it, affordable
municipal.
lodging,
Puis
and
M. Gillespie
I was wondering if
souhaite
we would
faire un plan d'habitation à Dieppe.
make a housing
Évaluer
plan in the app
les
that is
besoins sur différentes
evaluate
catégories
what
pour
would be the
anticiper le
needs,
nombre d'appartements à
anticipate the
évaluer
number of apartments with one room, two room, three rooms, and how many affordable lodging do we need? And for instance, Montreal have a strategy of 30% must be affordable. So I think it would be important that we should do that. And I wanted to read two sentences from that document.
Le caractère et la vitalité
The
d'une
character and vitality of a community that does not offer a complete gamut of housing can suffer if the young families, seniors, and low income people have to leave the municipality to find an adequate housing. Well, we can believe that the local economy will suffer from it, and I believe firmly in it.
On a commencé à travailler sur une chose
Did
comme
we
ça.
start working on something like that?
Alors, oui, on a
Yes,
commencé parce que la
we've
première chose
started
que
because
qu'il faut faire, c'est
the
quoi
first thing we
les
have
étapes
to
pour
know
arrêter communauté de
what
logement.
is affordable
C'est différent.
housing, what is the limit. Each one has a different limit. We ask expansion yet to establish and bring that information to us, especially to make a plan that will allow the city of Dieppe to succeed in that sector. It's become a challenge and people that move in a community. So we must have a 40,000 feet perspective, but we must be objective to what we're hoping for. On that I want to make a comment on that issue. It is something that is close to our heart. I can tell you that since 20,000, 2000, the last 20 years in that sector, not that we have a tendency to forget these sectors, but when we think to mobile homes that were accepted in the city of Dieppe
comme tel, que ce
as
soit
development per se, whether it be
aujourd'hui le boulevard Dieppe et
Boulevard Dieppe now or on
Dover,
Dover Road,
quand
the
même une représentation
Dover. Well,
significative de ce
it's
côté-là.
quite an
Si
important
on continue à développer
factor. But if we want to continue
ce secteur
developing our
il va falloir
downtown,
ouvrir
well,
ça
we will
de
have
façon
to
plus large
open
l'année
it
prochaine
wider and
centre-ville.
get closer to
On souhaite
downtown.
que
We
la
hope,
responsabilité
yes,
soit
it's a
partagée
shared
par les
responsibility
autorités
between the
et le
province
municipal et on souhaite
and the
que nos
municipality.
partenaires
And we
soient
hope
là
that
quand la
our
musique
partners
commence.
will be there when the music starts.
Puis, ouais, c'est ça. Donc, moi, je pense que c'est le côté locatif, même si on a les maisons.
So I think it's the rental aspect. If we have mobile home, I think we need to look what we can offer rent wise. And my message is good Saint Valentin. I wish you a lot of love and bravo to the snow removal team. We have an incredible winter.
Merci.
Thank you,
Madame Leboutier.
Mrs. Leboutillier.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Worship. I would like to add on the sector of snow removal. I wish maybe we can look not only all the sphere of sector of population. Well, this enlightened me once again. An announcement from the city, Shenix, they added 60 beds in Moncton. When will we have affordable housing similar to Ville de Repos? We have a population of over 25,000 people, and that quality of life have to move to Moncton. I live it with my grand aunt of Dieppe, especially. Well, these are seniors that have to move around, and with our public transport, it takes a long time. And well, I wish we would look at that also, start making more pressure on the province and to try. And I think that we just had a small portion, well, recently in the last 6 months, but to look at our needs, what can we do to go and have a better independence for that sector of population? On that, I would also like, we did not mention it tonight, we have a carnival that will be starting next Saturday. It's called The Magic of Winter. It will last 1 week. And I find quite interesting the sculpture contest. I will try to participate in it. I don't promise anything. Also, we've had quite a bit of snow, so I encourage the citizens to participate in it. It will be interesting. Furthermore, we have several surveys underway. We have surveys for fire, uh, open air fire that starts tomorrow. I'd like to have your opinion. We want to know if we should have outside fire all year round. And we have an advisory survey for urban forestry. And we've heard about it. Environment is very important, especially in Dieppe. More and more, we want to put more emphasis. And the plantation of tree, we have a new program. It's good to see that program come back to Dieppe. And thank you very much. That's all for me. Good night, everybody. Monsieur Godet,
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
thank you, Your
Ça a
Worship.
été mentionné,
It
comme
was
on dit
mentioned
nos
2 or 3 times.
dire, j'aimerais
What I wanted to say, I wanted to thank the whole team of the city of Dieppe
la neige. J'ai trouvé que ça
for the snow removal. It went well for the quality of life. They did a very good job. I want to congratulate them for that. And that's about all for me. I spent a bit of time with my spouse for Saint Valentin, and good evening. Well, once again, good Saint Valentin, all those who need love. I think we all need love. So, on that, good evening, everybody, and see you soon. Goodbye.
Bonne soirée.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.